Welcome back. Glad to have you. Another installment of Crack Open the Book as we continue our examination of suffering as revealed in the book of Job, primarily through the eyes of James, initially, as the book of James illustrates and highlights the fundamental thrust of the book. You have heard of the perseverance of Job and seen the end intended by the Lord. If you've read the book, the whole book, you'll know that the front end is pretty challenging, but the back end is the demonstration of God's compassion and mercy. What we're focusing on is the question of why do bad things happen to good people? And that is a common question. It is something that mankind has been working through or trying to work through for some time. And we're trying to provide a clear, concise answer to that. The nature of suffering, how suffering came to be, was a result of choice. In the garden, God said, don't eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, or you will die. As Satan said, no, the issue isn't that you're going to die. The issue is that he doesn't want you to eat because you're going to be like God. And Satan chose to go with the idea of deception, and Adam bought it. And sin, as according to Romans, entered through the one man. And that is the power of choice. So choice is the how that suffering entered. Adam opened the door and sin came in, and that's the issue. Yes, Henry. Yes, that's correct. Adam's choice is how suffering began. Through that choice, death entered into the world. What is that, William? Yes, all indeed have chosen sin. The passage on the idea that suffering is the result of choice. There is direct result, that is, you sin, you suffer. Romans 3:23, as William mentioned before, for all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God, and so therefore all deserve death or suffering. The indirect result is the more difficult one. Someone else sins and you suffer. Examples, Exodus, Romans, and Genesis 3:15. Irene, do you have some examples of those? Yes? All right, what do you got for us? Fathers to sons, that's true. If you read the Exodus passage, you'll see that God visits the iniquities or the sins of the fathers upon the sons to the third and fourth generation. That is, when fathers make poor choices or sinful choices, and they waste all the money and they gamble away all the family's wealth and can't feed them, that's a terrible situation for the family. Other choices, divorce, drug use, all kinds of things that people make does transfer that suffering over to the rest of the family. How about the Romans 8:20? Yes, natural disasters, Irene, very good. Hurricanes, floods, those kinds of things that we call natural disasters are actually a result of Adam's choice. The world began to deteriorate. Death entered into the world, not only on the human scale, but on the whole scale of the creation. And that proved to be one of the answers for why we have suffering of that nature. And finally, Genesis 3:15, Satan's attacks. I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between her seed and your seed. There is a constant friction between the people of God and the devil. The devil, as we're going to see, although he is limited, he is given permission for various reasons to attack man. And he does just that in the book of this episode. Suffering is the result of choice, direct and indirect results. So why does he allow suffering now becomes the real central question. We know how it came to be, but why does God allow that to happen to us? Well, the first line of defense is otherwise we would be a robot. If he takes away choice, We can never make a bad choice. Then there's not going to be any suffering. But then we're robots. And if we're robots, then we can't love, we can't experience joy, friendship, camaraderie, peace, because that's just not an attribute of a robot. So one of the reasons that he allows sufferings is so we can experience all of the good things of life. But the bottom line is that because God is merciful and just, those are two attributes of God, he allowed suffering to show how he loved mankind. By the suffering of his absolutely sinless Son, he paid the price for what we did to ourselves and to others, then proceeded to use his power to give mankind the opportunity to, there you go, through that suffering, choose again. To choose again. Now, we made the poor choice, but he gave us a chance to choose again through the offering of his Son. And even that is not the end. He promises in the end he will wipe away every tear. Every suffering will be gone. So that's why. Okay, class, let's get on with the book. The book of Job. So how does the story start? Marilyn, God called a meeting. That's right. He called a meeting up in heaven, and Satan came, and that was his responsibility. When God calls, you got to come. Excuse me. Then the Lord said to Satan, have you considered my servant Job, that there is none like him on the earth? A blameless and upright man, one who fears God and shuns evil. God is getting after Satan, saying, see, look at this guy. He is a good guy. Even through temptations and things that he's had, he even when he sinned, he fixed it. He offered sacrifices. He did what he was supposed to do. Well, Satan responds by saying, hey, the only reason that Job really is kind of following after you is you protect him and you give him good stuff. If you'll just reach down there and zap him, he'll curse you to your face. Well, God doesn't zap us. We know that. God doesn't do anything. He doesn't do directly any bad thing to us. Just arbitrarily, none of that. But he did give Satan to take on this challenge of God, so to speak. So Satan comes down and he's allowed to afflict Job. That's what I say when we talk about spiritual warfare. There are forces at work based on Genesis 3:15 that we can't see, but they are real. And Job is experiencing the reality of that eternal conflict. And so we know that in the story, 4 messengers, 4 servants come to Job, and after each one of them is just barely done, the other one shows up. And what does he tell Job? Well, you lost all your cattle, you lost all your camels, you lost all of your economic well-being. It's gone. I'm sorry, they're all dead, stolen. And then the last guy reports that the kids, his kids, were having this gathering, and the tent fell in on them, the house fell in on them, and they're all dead. Job has nothing. We must contemplate that. Just imagine yourself sitting there and all getting these reports. Your business is gone, your livelihood is gone, your house is gone, and your kids are dead. How would you respond? There is a real reason why God said that there is none like him on the earth. God knows the character. So when Job got this news, instead of raising his fist to the heavens and cursing God, he tore his robes, shaved his head, which are things that you do when you are in mourning, and he fell to the ground and worshipped, and he said, naked I came from my mother's womb, and naked shall I return there. The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. In all this, Job did not sin nor charge God with wrong. I don't know about you, but I've had some challenges in my life, and I'm sure that you have too. But I've never had a challenge like this all at once. I've had problems and setbacks in my ability to make a living. And I've even had some deaths in my family very close to me, but I didn't have them happen all in the same day. And Job just lays down at the feet of God in worship and says, "Blessed be the name of the Lord." Phenomenal, phenomenal character, a man of great faith. Now that doesn't mean he doesn't have questions, but he's not doubting the nature and the good. And there again was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan came also. So we're going to do it again. And Satan shows up and has this conversation with God. God says, "See, look at Job. He holds fast to his integrity, although you incited me against him to destroy him without cause." Now remember, God didn't do it directly. He allowed Satan to do it. He gave him his permission. So God says, "See, I told you so." Satan answered the Lord and said, "Skin for skin. Yes, all that a man has, he will give for his life. But stretch out your hand now and touch his bone and his flesh, and he will surely curse you to your face." And the Lord said to Satan, "Behold, he is in your hand, but spare his life." And Satan went out from the presence of the Lord. So God and Satan continue on this discussion, this debate, this rivalry, this challenge of power. And Satan says, if I can get to him and touch him physically, he'll. Satan goes back down to the earth, and the Bible says he struck Job. He gave him boils, something all over his body that was extremely painful. And his situation is dire now. He's lost everything, and he personally now is afflicted. Now his wife comes up to him and says, "Do you still hold fast to your integrity? Curse God and die." Integrity, what is that? Integrity is fundamentally, you do what you say. You're a man of your word. And Job has said what? Blessed be the name of the Lord. He gives, he takes away. That's his business. His wife says, look at this. He's taken everything from us. And she certainly paid the penalty as well. But he refuses to curse God. And he says to her, "You speak as one of the foolish women speak. Shall we indeed accept good from God? Shall we not accept adversity?" He's calling it adversity. In all this, Job did not sin with his lips. Now remember, Job does not know that the devil is involved in this. And so the only person that could possibly manage to do all of these things in this way, it's not a coincidence that all this stuff has happened. Boom, boom, boom. There's some divine intervention here, but Job does not have integrity. Now we find the story where Job's three friends heard of his situation, and they make an appointment to come together to mourn with him. They're his friends. And as you know, when you have a great calamity or a loss of life, you go and meet with your friends and you try to comfort them. But oftentimes, especially in the case of a death, you don't know what to say. And the best thing is not to say anything. And that's fundamentally what these guys do. And when they raised their eyes from afar, they did not recognize him. They lifted their voices and wept, and each one of them tore his robe and sprinkled dust on his head towards heaven. So they sat down with him on the ground 7 days and 7 nights, and no one spoke a word to him, for they saw that his grief was great. These are true friends. We have to recognize that. They are true friends. They too are torn because of Job's condition and the things that have happened to him. And so looking at that situation, they sit down on the ground with him. They've torn their clothes. They put dust on their head, and they're just sitting there for 7 days. Now, I don't know about you, but I never sat with nobody for 7 days and said nothing. So, class, let's take a look at the situation. What is the source of Job's suffering? The devil. That's right, Marilyn. Does anyone on earth know that? Okay, thanks, William. Nope, nobody knows that. Now, that's a clue to us. Sometimes we might not know the exact reason for the suffering. Question number 3, which is a vital question. Has that changed Job's faith? No. Thank you, Henry. No, it hasn't. He hasn't moved one. He lost all his stuff, physically attacked. Hasn't. Is Job in misery? Yes. Irene says yes, and there's no doubt about that. He's in misery, but it didn't change his faith. Does he know what's going on? Nope. Did it change? Nope. Didn't change his faith. What's the source of Job's suffering of the 3? Did he do anything? Nope. Did someone else do anything? Well, in a sense, yes, but not another human being. In this case, it's purely the devil. So in chapter 3, as we continue on in the story, Job does have questions. It's okay to question. But remember, don't get too theological. He's sitting there with all these things here, and it says that he says, why did I not die at birth? People in their extreme conditions of great tragedy and torment, personal affliction, disease, war, why? These are just cries of the magnitude of the suffering. They're not to be theologically analyzed. He's just saying, man, I am in bad shape. Why didn't I just die? And his friends are hearing this because now Job is talking. We look at the fundamental outline of the entire book. So in chapters 1 through 3, we have what we might call the period of distress. And that's what we've just completed. Now, the other 33 middle chapters are these conversations that Job is going to have with his friends about everybody trying to figure out why this great calamity has happened to him. And the first and immediate response by most people is that somebody's done something wrong. And the final section, 38 through 42, is when God will enter into the conversation and deliver Job from this. But still, we're going to look at the examination of why this thing has happened. And I think we're going to be interested in what God has to say about all. And we are ready to proceed. I think it would be helpful if you read James chapter 1 for next time, as James has some things to say about suffering and trials, and we'll be able to proceed with our study in the book of Job, is starting up there in chapter 4. So please get yourselves ready for that, and see you later, alligator. But remember, that when you receive a blessing from God, which you do every day, make sure you pass that blessing along to someone else.
This has been a Badger Godbolt production. For more information or to ask a question, please feel free to contact us at crack.open.the.book@gmail.com. You can also visit our YouTube channel, Crack Open the Book, at youtube.com. And don't forget to follow us so you never miss an opportunity to have a conversation about truth.